All right, Brian, we are live after Dynamite and Collision, back to back on Wednesday night on the eve of Wrestle Dream or something like that. The go home show, as we say, leading into Sunday's mega pay-per-view. Frantic list of added matches for the pre-show. Some developments on this show. I'm going to throw it to you. What is the top development on this show that you think helped sell the pay-per-view on Saturday for people who are on the fence?
I will say two things. I will say the Statlander Storm match does seem kind of thrown together. However, I think they've done an actual very good job of telling the story of how Storm basically, she just got overconfident and lost, fair and square. You know, Viva wrestling move. To Chris Statlander. She's never beaten Chris Statlander one-on-one. This will be the first time they're wrestling against each other. I honestly did not mind. I welcomed, honestly, the opening of the show, Wade, because there's so much contrived stuff with wrestling right now. The fact that they had the interaction with Renee and they said, nope, no more invisible camera stuff. We're going to go to the ring and fight. And they did. It was equal respect. Ultimately, the way I'm interpreting this is almost their match Saturday is a vehicle that they're building to blood and guts, which this match will end with a handshake of sorts, which then will build to a friendship of them being on the babyface team for blood and guts. So I was already very excited for that. But, I mean, the Moxley Darby stuff, incredible. Just, again, to go back to, because I've been kind of like very just unmoved by a lot of things in wrestling right now. Different is always a good thing. Now, it may not turn out
I do not
good.
like that declaration, Brian.
Okay.
Different is not always a good thing. There's been a lot of different things that have been awful and terrible and bad ideas. So don't throw that cliche out there unless you're willing to defend it.
Well, I mean, I will say I've just been very unmoved by just wrestling TV in general, right, Wade? And this was something.
How about novelty can be good when adults are in the room and it helps promote the match or feud, and it's done so in a way that doesn't break your brain.
Yes, I will completely agree with that. The thing I enjoyed, the setting and the production of the segment.
Yep.
Was so it felt like a Rob Fee type of thing where they would just do something different. It had kind of an NFL films type of shooting. Mm-hmm. I liked how in the first part of the segment with Moxley, you only saw Darby kind of talking through the mirror of like the jail cell, kind of window, and just the fact that in very Darby Allin fashion, how the fact that he got jumped. And then, you press his blood against the screen. And that is actually something very Darby Allin that he would do, obviously. But I would say I've been kind of unmoved with the feud of late, but this definitely re-sold me on the card. And just, I'm very thankful. There was a lot of stuff added for the pre-show. Completely fine with that. 8 matches on this main card.
Brian,
yes.
Don't cover every topic we're going to cover in the next.
Oh, sorry.
I asked you what the 2 selling points of the pay-per-view were. I assume your answer to that is Stat Storm and Moxley Darby.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, good. I got to rein you in. Otherwise, I'm going
to
sign off the show in 3 minutes because you'll cover everything in rapid-fire fashion. All right. So, a couple things on what you're saying. One, we have a DDM agreeing that different isn't always a good thing. So we got at least a second to my notion, although you were the second. Now we're confirming it. But as far as Moxley Darby goes, I want to expand. I want to elaborate on that point before we move on to other things. Fanbless says, "Meh, I thought the Mox Darby thing was goody and try hard and edgelord. I liked it, and you had mentioned invisible camera in that the phrase invisible camera or the term." In reference to Statlander and Tony Storm, but I didn't see an invisible camera. There's just a camera off to the side. They weren't pretending there wasn't an invisible camera. Is when wrestlers are being filmed and they pretend they're not.
Right.
Yeah. So I thought the filming of that was fine. I just think we'll cover that in a second. Statlander looked like she was reading off a cue card or a teleprompter when she gave her weird speech in the middle when we had that camera that was off camera. We'll get to that. But what I liked about Darby Moxley is it was plausible.
Yes.
They wanted to meet somewhere. They had this prison glass between them with a microphone. I would not have wanted Tony Schiavone going to Darby and Mox at this point. Oh, thanks for agreeing to no violence. Like, we didn't have an agreement. They're not going to agree. Well, I mean, in a way, they're sort of an honor among thieves right now with those two.
Yes.
You know, I mean, I could see a situation where they would, but I'm glad they didn't do that. So they found this, I thought, really cool setting. I thought Moxley was his delivery of his lines as a character was prestige TV worthy. I mean, I could see him as a villain, as in a, or a hero, anti-hero in a HBO series doing that. I mean, I think that should be something he considers doing. I think it might be his world after wrestling. And I thought Darby was good. And the idea that somebody snuck in the back and, through an open door and attacks Darby, I'm fine with that too. I mean,
very plausible.
Yeah. There was nothing about this that, like, to me, I know it's weird to say given the context of what happened, which is sort of this prison meeting room and then a bloody face being shoved against glass. But it's believable Pac would find a way to get there and that he would do something like that. And it all was plausible with two cameras that were off to the side. It wasn't like there wasn't a shot where a camera should be. So to me, this felt like they were pulling back on the nonsense. The fourth grader left the room who was booking all this other stuff. And they said, let's make this an adult feud. And I thought they made it an adult feud tonight. I understand a little defense of Darby showing up with all these weapons because the story is, and I get it. If Zach Barber was in the chat, he'd be going, come on, Wade, they're trying to sell the idea of it's going to take all these things to get someone to quit. And I get that. My issues were very precise last week with Darby interfering and interrupting a match unprovoked at that moment, and the announcers and the establishment not decrying that, just going, hey, it's crazy because there's cool things that Darby's wielding. And obviously a Molotov cocktail. I mean, that's not I quit. That's I'm blowing you to bits. So that's also too far. But reining back in tonight, I thought this was adults in the room. I thought the performances were good. And I actually really liked him. I could be, I wouldn't say talked out of it, but talked down from being high on it if someone wants to bring up some points that maybe I'm overlooking. But I thought the hand on the canvas that the camera shot when Darby was crawling to the ring, he was still selling the beatdown from Pac, his bloody face being shoved against glass. And he's walking like a zombie. I'm thinking that, and then Schiavone says it. Everyone was thinking it. It didn't feel. It could have felt campy and cartoonish. It didn't to me. Maybe it did to others. It didn't to me. I felt Darby was beat up, but he is determined to get to the ring. And then he crawls into the ring. One criticism is I would not have had two instances of a wrestler kneeling in front of another wrestler. They kind of bookended the show with that.
Sure.
And I just think they should be, they should always go, if there's something really important, let's make sure no one else on the show does something similar to it in a less important position or a less important angle. But overall, I mean, I thought it was adults in the room. So comment more on that, Brian. I'm sure we'll talk more about this as the show goes on.
Yeah, from what I saw universally just on socials, just looking at it briefly, I saw a lot of people saying very compelling, just because, like you said, the last few weeks we've went back to the Moxley that you and I didn't really care for, the Dick Dastardly John Moxley, where he was looking to tie somebody up to a railroad track and run over Darby, and figuratively, I guess that's what they would want to do in an I Quit match. But they got back in the room. They really said, "Okay, guys, I think we've lost the plot. What is the entire plot leading up to this match? Darby Allin could get beaten to a bloody pulp, but he will not quit." I really think some people might think it's over the top, but really, honestly, I don't think it's a really bad thing for AEW to reference. Darby Allin literally climbed Mount Everest. Like, you can mention that every week and it not be tropey. Like, use that every time you can. And just the fact that they brought out the flag that Darby used when he climbed Mount Everest, and he mentioned in the promo that he was going to choke out John Moxley with that. Now, to me, I don't like the premise of fighting for the soul of a company. I just think that's a very tropey, overdone thing in just wrestling objectively. However, just the way Darby is framing it, nobody's really saving him, so he really is in a position he could get beat up by 10 Death Riders or, and whoever else, but he will not quit. So I'm very, very interested on how they really back end, like really how they do this match. I presume there wasn't really anything confirmed. This has to be the main event for the show, does it not?
I mean, Tony likes to have his men's world title match in the main event, and I'm honestly fine if they finish with Hangman Samoa Joe. But I don't. You'd have to put a lot of thought into how to not make it a match where people are getting up and leaving the arena because they're so exhausted,
Right.
and stunned and drained from what Moxley and Darby go through. I think having some sort of explanation for it would be good if it's gonna. It's not a lights out match. It's not unsanctioned. So right, they haven't like said those words. So to not finish with a world title match, I mean, it should be. I think it's clearly the top draw. Is with all due respect, and it's a ton of it to Samoa Joe and Hangman Page, and I think really liked what they did to build the match last week, especially. It's not the culmination of a 8-month program. So and Darby and Mox is a culmination of a very big feud with a ton of hype. So I think it ought to be. I do like the flag and Mount Everest being brought up. I liked that Excalibur was tonight better than I can remember, assuming no knowledge. Like the IWGP title, it is the top title in New Japan. That's all we've been asking for 6.5 years, is make newbies feel welcome, and people who peripherally follow stuff reinforce it. And fill in some granular detail and all that. And Excalibur did that here throughout the show. But I like the notion that they're like, they didn't assume everybody knows the whole story about Darby.
Yes.
And that worked. And so that is, to me, that's better than a Molotov cocktail. That's better. This felt like adults decided, how do we build up a match? You can go, well, there's certain things I don't like. And in fact, one aspect was Darby saying that he thinks every day about wanting to join the Death Riders. Fan Blast said that. That he said at one point in his prison pro, or whatever that communication room was, that every day he thinks about joining the Death Riders, but he just doesn't respect Moxley and his crew. So Fan Blast says, I wouldn't have had Darby say he actually wants to join the Death Riders and agrees with what they're trying to do. I think that taps into something that has been murky from the beginning, which is Moxley's whole Death Rider character is based around real life frustrations with Moxley wanting AEW to have more of an adult edge to it,
right?
And be more hardcore and less and have everyone care about pro wrestling as much as he does. It's a babyface stance to take, but it's the means to which he wanted to send the message to the world that we're supposed to boo. But having Darby say there's aspects of the message I agree with, I would have been better with that than him saying every day I want to join you guys, because they've done so much.
Right.
But that's not a nitpick. That's a legit point. But I think overall in the aggregate, they did enough to talk about the horrible things the Death Riders have done, where it's understandable Darby, there's a part of Darby that wishes the Death Riders were a group he could join. And I think that's a better way to phrase it. Like, I wish you represented your cause in a way where I'd be proud to stand next to you.
Exactly.
And a little tweak in the wording, I think, would work. So that's something I would have done different. But overall, I don't think you can come away from this show not thinking that is an epic match with high stakes, with somebody who climbed Mount Everest and had an AEW flag that he waved at the top of the mountain. As like, this is a guy who really will, I don't say die for AEW, but come pretty close to it. And the selling point here, and I'll throw to Brian, is who's going to quit? That you can't imagine. It's like the John Cena Rock match the first time. Like, what's going to be the finish? You couldn't imagine the finish, because both had such massive consequences in a meta sense and a storyline sense and everything. I think that's how people feel here. Someone's going to quit. Well, they better. better not pass out or have someone play a tape recorder of someone saying I quit or something stupid. Someone's gonna say I quit, and I think there's intrigue in how it happens. Brian, over to you.
Yeah, Wade, honestly, I'm just really more excited about the finality of this entire storyline. I'm ready to move on. I feel like since All In, I've been traditionally I'm for table setting. You can't have every phase of the MCU be like, great, right? Sometimes you have to kind of enjoy kind of like the middle, and it's like, oh, okay, I understand we had to kind of start off slow to peak here, peaks and valleys. I completely understand that. I've been really kind of like ready to move on. Like, what's the next big bang here? And I feel like the finality of this feud, if it does main event, I would assume, because Darby did mention it in his promo, when he does lose, the Death Riders are going to turn on him. Which would be very, because if you remember, babyface Moxley would always call his shots in the match, which I I thought was an interesting line, because anytime John Moxley would reference something when he, as a babyface fighting champion would come to fruition, he wouldn't overthink it. It would actually happen. So, I'm very excited to see what happens with that match. I'm ready for Darby to move on. What happens after Darby wins? Like, what's his next opponent? Does he move on to Hangman Page? MJF, if he comes back? A lot of different variables. I'm just excited for the finality of everything.
And I want there to be clear that they had something in mind for both Moxley and Darby coming out of this. That
Yes.
Where they have momentum. Maybe Moxley takes 2 months off after the beating. I mean,
Hey, yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Renee's still waiting on that vacation, I think.
Exactly. So when I say follow up, it doesn't need to be instant.
Yes.
There's a lot that they can do, but yeah, let's have something big planned for both of them afterwards, not necessarily immediately afterwards for one of them if they really want to sell it. Yeah, I think this match is what's going to primarily sell the pay-per-view, and I think tonight, going back to my opening question to you, the Darby Mox stuff didn't have anything that was so corny, over the top, or needlessly ultra violent or anything. Like, it told a story, and it made the match feel epic, and it established the stakes, and I think both guys established their position and where they're coming from. So yeah, I think that was good. All right, let's pause, introduce ourselves, and then we'll get on to more conversation about the show. A lot more to cover. We got Rude Dog on hold, who wants to be a video caller. We'll check
right.
the mailbag too. I know JB sent an email, and with a number of questions. So lot of stuff coming up. This is the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show on Wednesday, October 15th, 2025. We are streaming live on the PWTorch YouTube channel after the Dynamite Collision back-to-back 3+ hour spectacular. And yeah, because there can't be a Collision on Saturday night when the pay-per-view is happening, so we got another shortened Collision followed by the countdown show on Wednesday night. And I'm Wade Keller, host of the show, editor, publisher, founder of the Pro Wrestling Torch weekly newsletter and the website PWTorch.com. Here's this week's paper copy, hot off the presses. Roundtable review. You can only read in the newsletter from the Torch staff reviewing Crown Jewel. Greg Parks. What was Greg Parks' column on? Let me flip to page 10 here. How did I forget already? I know last week we wrote about, TNA Bound for Glory. Last week we wrote about Non Callis. This week it's full column on Bound for Glory. So yeah, go VIP. You can read the PDF online version of that. PWTorch.com/go VIP. We've been publishing the Pro Wrestling Torch newsletter for decades, and those back issues are available on demand. Almost 2,000 of them when you go VIP. PWTorch.com/go VIP gives you full details on all VIP benefits. If you haven't been a VIP member before, give us a try. There's a lot of exclusive content that we produce on a daily basis, weekly basis, but also unmatched archives that you can unlock. It's super friendly on tablets, phones, desktops, laptops, and our podcast feed is super compatible in multiple places, including Apple Podcasts. No password or complicated sign up. We have a really slick system set up for you if you're not super tech savvy or just want it to be simple. And it's customizable too. PWTorch.com/go VIP. But we're here to talk Dynamite. Brian Zilem is my co-host. He's a PW Torch contributor. He often is on our podcasts, sometimes filling in as host. And you were on a Wrestling Night in America post show recently also at the helm. Good to have you here in the co-host chair, Brian. Good to do a show with you again.
Yeah, absolutely. Wade, are you ready for basketball to tip off?
I am. Suddenly your volume is softer, by the way, Brian.
Okay.
I don't think I turned my volume down. So
okay. How do I sound now?
I think about the same. Chat, let us know if you think suddenly he sounds softer. But I don't have a big enough sample size. So maybe it'll just work itself out. Okay. I'm very excited about this Timberwolves season. I think they will be a top team in the West once again, and Anthony Edwards and a whole host of compelling teammates. Yeah, very, very excited about that. They're running an ad during Dynamite of the opening night games, and those are some good opening night games too.
Yeah, no, I suspect they should still be pretty competitive in a very difficult Western Conference. It's interesting that I feel like I don't know if they're getting disrespected. I just feel like they're not getting enough acknowledgement for just what they've done the past couple years, back-to-back Western Conference Finals, and continuity it's a thing for basketball.
It is.
I just
Yeah.
feel like if you've got the scars, you that helps tremendously in chemistry and development, and when you're in those really difficult situations, it just builds character, it just prepares you to for the grind, because those playoffs can be pretty difficult, but should be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
No, absolutely. Your volume's still a little bit soft, Brian.
Okay.
I am not worried about anyone underestimating the Timberwolves. Let the national media continue to have no. Their analysis of the Wolves is always awful. I mean, like I almost am absolutist in saying it's almost always awful. Nobody knows what's going on here on the West Coast or on the East Coast, and it's not the LA Lakers. So the mistakes that the national media consistently makes about trades and moves and team chemistry, they just don't follow the team close enough to know, and that's fine. I'll just enjoy the local media who get this team, and we'll sneak up and hopefully make it past the Western Conference Finals this year, although OKC is tough. But you don't want to say you're one injury away from making the finals, because you want to make the finals against a full right. team. You want to beat a potential crown dynasty already in OKC. You want them to be full strength if you beat them. But the fact is this league is very unpredictable in terms of players going down. Every team's going to have to face that. So there's no certitude in anything. But I'm quite certain if the Wolves stay healthy, they will be a top 4 team and in the running for home court, and they're going to be a very exciting team to watch. So, yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah, no, I'm excited to see what young Cooper Flagg has to offer for my team.
Who's your team? You got to establish this.
The Dallas Mavericks, Wade.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm saying for the audience. We don't have NBA fans.
Yes.
No. They don't know who Cooper Flagg is.
Yeah, for anybody who doesn't know, Cooper Flagg was the number 1 overall pick after somehow, with a less than 2% odds of winning the NBA lottery, after trading their arguably a top 5 player in the league, fell ass backwards in the draft lottery. Mind you, the Mavericks have never moved up in the draft lottery before, and now they have potentially a very, very young, talented young man at 6'9" who has got the potential to be up there with LeBron James as far as hype, as far as talent coming into the league. I'm still very realistic, as rookies generally don't contribute to winning, so I will just sit back and enjoy the ride. But I imagine people will overreact, as always, when rookies don't meet expectations. But I mean, even LeBron James didn't make the playoffs in his rookie year.
It's a Dallas fans. It stung. I mean, I was a little sympathetic because I just didn't like Luka. I thought he didn't play defense. He was out of shape, and I didn't think I think he was going to be injury prone, and I don't think he was going to play at this level. I know it's crazy sounding, and I'm not saying I'm an expert, but I was more sympathetic to the Dallas GM than most, in the sense that I just imagined him not taking care of himself. He was just winded in the playoff games against the Wolves, and he didn't play defense, and there was sort of an arrogance to him, and I don't think he took care of himself outside of in his off time. And I think you get away with that in your 20s, and you find out in your 30s you can't. And I think Dallas was like, okay, we've gone as far as we can with a guy who's not taken physical fitness and peak performance seriously. He's riding on unbelievable talent. I mean, top 5 player talent, but it's the clock ticking. And I think it took going to Lakers and being around LeBron to probably kick him into gear a little bit and go, oh, this is what we have to be a professional. And LA is a lot harder on me than Dallas. They're not just happy to have me. So I think Luka can end up with a better career because of that trade. But I also kind of I'm not saying I would have done it, but I kind of get where the GM was coming from, dealing with this guy who is gifted, but maybe not, he's going to degrade sooner than most because of his lifestyle.
Yeah, and a lot of people forget, most of these really talented guys don't usually start taking care of their bodies seriously until later 20s, early 30s, because, look at Dirk Nowitzki. He was great, but he really didn't take physical fitness seriously until, his late 20s, early 30s, and then, 2011, he finally made it to the mountaintop. Sometimes it just takes some time, and like you say, wisdom. And that culture shock, ultimately it was unfortunate the way it happened, because he obviously was heartbroken because he had just bought a house. He's got a young daughter.
Wow.
But
no, I'm not crying for those not watching on video. I mean, when you have that much money and you got to sell a house and buy a new one, it's like that's like us when we like drop a chapstick down a gutter. It's like, okay, I got to buy a new chapstick. Shoot, that's a I mean, come on. No, I get. I'm being a little whatever, playful with it, but. No, trades are tough. Trades are tough. The chat's just lit up with everyone's giving their opinion on their own NBA team. It's fun. However, I could totally get caught up talking NBA with you for a few minutes here, a few more minutes if I'm not careful. I will say this: Anthony Edwards still has not cleaned up his diet. He's still living off fast food, and he's chomping on some Lay's potato chips in the second half of a preseason game after he changed into his regular clothes and showered early. I'm very much hoping that Carl Anthony Towns called him out a couple years ago in a post-game press conference. He's like, well, if Anthony Edwards starts eating healthy, like all of us, because Rudy Gobert is a fitness freak. Like he doesn't put anything in his body. That's not going to give him energy and help him stay. He has a pro wrestler cut body. He is, people say he's going to fade quickly. I mean, he's going to last as long as anybody his size ever has with how he takes care of himself. It's rubbing off on Edwards a little bit, but not enough. And he's been winded in games and stuff like that. But I don't know. We'll see. They have one of their last preseason games tomorrow night, so I'll probably try to catch that. Good. All right. Well, look what you got started here, Brian. All right. If you want to talk wrestling with us, the email is wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com. That's also the email you can send anything about the show. You can send questions or rants or comments for the flagship that we usually record on Tuesdays. So as the weekend progresses, if you go, hey, I want to be on the flagship on Tuesday, that's a podcast-only version, our blue logo show. Search Wade Keller to subscribe to that also. This is our red logo show. Both are available in podcast format. The post shows are only the post shows are on YouTube. The blue logo shows, including our flagship. And by the way, an AEW pay-per-view preview will be dropping Friday. Eric Kroll will be joining me for that, going in depth on the whole full Wrestle Dream lineup. That is also a blue logo podcast audio only exclusive, not on YouTube. So if you're seeing us on YouTube, search Wade Keller on your podcast app and subscribe to that, or find the link on our website, PWTorch.com. And what was I was going to say something else about that. But anyway, just send your questions to the flagship. Anytime it's Monday morning or Sunday night, and you're thinking, hey, I want to be part of the flagship. I got something on my mind about wrestling. That's a good time to do it. All right. You can also join us in the chat. We'll be continuing to incorporate chat comments into the conversation. As always, even if we put them on the screen for our YouTube viewers, we will always read the ones we're commenting on to the audio audience. We don't want them to ever feel left out or wonder what we're talking about. And so encourage the chat to keep talking. And also, you can be a video caller. The link to that is in my report at PWTorch.com. I write up my reports live on Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'll also have a Wrestle Dream report alongside Brandon LeClaire's on Saturday night at PWTorch.com, or the every version, PWTorchVIP.com, for our VIP members. A much cleaner experience having all those ads gone, and also just access to all the VIP stuff. So again, go VIP if you haven't yet. All right, so speaking of callers, Brian, I meant to say way back before I went to the NBA, tell people about your contributions to PWTorch.com, speaking of the website.
Yes, of course. So weekly, I am manning the helm of the hits and misses for AEW Collision Weekly, and Wade has been kind enough to let myself and Amanda Jenny, contributor, to do our Collision Cafe show, which will talk Collision, AEW, and occasionally some other wrestling topics if they become topical and bleed over. We just had our 50th show. We will plan on doing a preview and review, obviously, of Wrestle Dream, assuming there's no conflicts in schedules. So have those available on your feeds, like Wade mentioned on the podcast thing. Having that on it's such a seamless thing, just having it on the Apple Podcast thing. I love just getting half the time I would love to listen live, but I can't. But it's really cool just listening to live shows with you and Todd Martin, or The Fix, or whatever else you're doing weekly, Wade, or anybody else on the staff. It's really fun. Awesome. Thanks. All right, we're going to bring Rude Dog on. Derek Mitchell suggests, Brian, you fumble with your audio. He says your audio is still lower than it should be. I don't know if they just have to unplug and plug something in or whatever, but we'll bring Rude Dog on, and you can see if you can fumble with that. Rude Dog, welcome. Good to see you. Good to talk to you again.
Good to see you. Good to talk. Talking NBA with Wade and Brian. That's cool.
Defending the Dallas Mavs Lakers trade. Who's ever done that? You have to come to the Wade Keller podcast to find that.
Yeah, pretty much. But so this was the first time I watched Dynamite live on HBO Max,
Interesting.
and it did something weird because I don't even think HBO Max knew like when Dynamite and Collision started or ended, because like it just I was still watching the Dynamite feed till 10:35 p.m. Eastern time, and then it just turned off. And it was basically in the middle of Collision. So then I went and tried to just like restart it. Nope. Went to the Collision thing and there was nothing there, but it took them like 5 minutes for it to pop up that Collision was live at like 10:40. So that was a little frustrating.
There's bumps in the road. I know with ESPN's WWE PLEs, if you start a PLE like an hour and a half late and you're watching it, when the PLE ends, if you're in the middle of watching it on delay, it just turns off. It cuts you off, and then it takes like 10, 20 minutes for them to basically run the tape from the live truck and run it into some data center to turn it into an on-demand show. I'm creating a physical environment of it, but that it doesn't exist. No one's running around with the tape, but that's what it feels like. Like the replay is not instantly available. They kind of have to upload it to become available. So you have this like 10, 20-minute interruption, even though they say, you can start whenever you want. Well, you got to plan to, I just walked my dog during that time. That happened on Saturday morning. He was happy. He didn't have to wait another 2-3 hours to get his walk. But yeah, I say that as it's a relatively new technology, streaming live sports on streaming services compared to cable, and there's going to be some hiccups. But that's all that. It sounds like I'm defending it. I'm sort of just acknowledging the reality that it's going to be amateur hour sometimes in some of these places, and that's kind of what you described there. That sounds like amateur hour at HBO Max.
Yeah, Rudog, generally for if there is bleed over for like the longer shows, ideally you would think it would all just stay on the same stream, right? Where it's just seamless. But for whatever reason, they feel, I don't know if it's because of, like Wade mentioned, that the technology is still kind of new, where they feel obligated. Well, this is Collision, so we have to make sure we have this separate on the Collision file. So if somebody wants to go back and watch Collision, it's there rather than watching I would rather it just be the 3-hour show straight.
Yeah.
But they don't really do a good job of saying, hey, like if you're watching on HBO Max, hey, we're going to end on this time, switch over. So that way you're not missing the show, because, how many people are actually watching live on cable? Because not many, probably. But
it's remember when WWE Raw was Raw's War, and then in the middle of the show they'd switch it to Warzone. Yes. And like, because they wanted to register twice in the ratings and be able to sell to advertisers twice instead of just once on a show. They had all kinds of whatever reasons. Brian, your audio still doesn't change. You're still a lot softer, so you're either going to have to shout at us, move the microphone closer physically, or bow out and bow in maybe if you want to try to reset things. We might be able to fix it in post-production, but it might add an hour to our night. Rudog, back to you. Oh, by the way, Rudog, a couple people in the chat said that they didn't experience that with HBO Max. So that's weird that it just cut off at the top of the hour and everything was normal. So who knows? Honestly, who knows? It could be the streaming service through which you get HBO Max. Who knows the layers here that are happening?
Okay, well, yeah. I'm just sharing what I experienced. But,
or they're lying. You're lying or they're lying. All right.
I'm definitely not lying. But I also thought it was funny how they presented Collision tonight, because I really don't think at any point during the first 2 hours they actually said, and wait for a special hour of Collision later. They just kept saying it was a special AEW 3-hour show.
Yeah.
So it almost made me feel like they were embarrassed about Collision. Like, if we're going to say Collision, well, no one's going to stick around for that, because they're just going to think it's a bunch of like matches that don't mean anything. So it was like,
and it was a bunch of matches that didn't mean anything.
Well, it kind of built up the pay-per-view.
I'm sorry, when Rocky Romero is losing in the main event, it is a Collision moment. When Harley Cameron is taking a beating and losing clean to a more pushed, serious opponent, and then you have Garcia and Yuta in a Collision special. come on. It was a typical hour of Collision, and I shouldn't say they should be embarrassed, but I can understand them being worried, Rude Dog, that if they say, yeah, Collision's coming up next, people are like, oh yeah, that's the show that I skip every weekend, I'll just tune out. And they didn't exactly create a big hook. I mean, they barely hyped the main event, and there wasn't a real hook. I mean, I think Tony knows there's a lot more people watching those first 2 hours, and he's selling pay-per-views to them, and there's a drop off afterwards, and they're just contractually fulfilling their obligation.
Yeah, and I think it's sad because, like, you know, it doesn't have to be that way. And, like, Collision is going into Rampage territory now where it's just like,
yep,
why bother watching it type of deal.
Well, every 3 or 4 weeks, you regret it because someone goes, it's a really good show. And a lot happened, and you got to see that Tony Storm promo, or you got to see that angle. But, you know, 2 or 3 out of 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, almost, you know, it's usually a show with filler matches where you know the outcome and it fills a lot of time. And it's, you know, if you like pro wrestling, it's fine. It's a fine way to kick back and watch a couple hours of wrestling. Not everything has to be super crazy newsworthy, but the reality is their viewership's going to be low if it doesn't feel must see. It's, you know, it feels kind of like NBA preseason. You know, I might tune in, might not, no big deal. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, Rude Dog, I agree with you. Sometimes it's unfortunate
Brian,
that
now you're too loud.
I'm too loud. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So whatever you did, just meet it halfway or just talk softer. And then we're good. We're figuring it out.
All right. How do we sound now?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
Look at that.
Yeah. So somehow my microphone setting changed.
Yeah.
During it. I believe StreamYard.
HBO Max people were in charge.
Yeah, way to go, HBO Max. It's unfortunate sometimes that people don't really take Collision seriously, but again, that's up to AEW to promote. And weekly, myself and Joshua White will review Collision. Josh, I feel like he's a little bit more, very straightforward on his reviews of Collision. I definitely try to do my best to look at the optimistic look of the show. Like, okay, what was the shining light through kind of like this very fundamentally sound wrestling show, which some weeks, like Wade said, they will go out of their way and have like a really memorable Collision, like the right out the MJF show on Collision. That was a really, really good Collision. Now, did the atmosphere help? Oh yeah, it absolutely did. Because that was one of the Philadelphia shows. It just there's a way to book Collision, and to me, I would almost go polar opposite of cramming 7 to 8 matches on a show. I think the sweet number is about 5, honestly, and do more promos, give more angles, have more time, like with the stuff that you can't fit into Dynamite.
It's this catch-22 because it's like, well, then we got to spend a third of Dynamite catching people up on all the big things that they didn't see on Saturday.
But that's okay.
Well, yeah, but I don't think Tony Khan thinks it's okay because he looks at the minute-by-minute numbers and goes, oh my God, we lost 14% of our audience when we did a video package instead of a bunch of high spots in the ring. So, that's a whole other that's right. a non-Dynamite post-show topic that we can delve into any week, Brian, because it is always the same thing. Like it's been perpetual. And it's frustrating because either decide you're going to make the show important or don't and live with it. But this kind of herky-jerky where you're like, oh God, I missed something important. Why didn't you tell me? I mean, I think it can be frustrating. But yeah, there should always be things happening on Collision, 1 or 2 things worthy of recap on Dynamite. And then they should actually recap it on Dynamite and find a happy medium. I mean, and just be consistent with that. All right, Rudok, back to you.
All right. I'll go to a different subject. So are you guys impressed with Mercedes Moné win in Denmark for the Body Slam Championship? I mean,
I haven't seen the match yet.
She is this is like the Wrestling Nerd International Tour. Like, I just want to collect all these belts that most people have never heard of. She gets, as somebody speculated, I think it was in the fixed mailbag, it's like paid vacations. Like, I get to travel to all these places in the world, and Tony Khan is paying for me, and I get to show up and do my ha-ha weird laugh. Oh, wait, that's Ricochet. I don't know. Her weird laugh, and ha-ha, and carry all these belts and, look like a big mark. But, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I go back and forth on it. I mean, it's something. Yes, she's, now set the record. She has 10. It doesn't make her a bigger star. It's giving her something to talk about. I don't know. Brian, what do you think? I mean, I'm not talking about match quality. I'm just saying like the gimmick of, hey, look at my achievement this week. I won another belt that nobody has heard of and nobody knows who you beat unless they're online, really digging deep. And I'm sorry, I threw you. But the downside is you're advertising to your audience that you have a megastar, maybe one of the top 3 paid people on your roster, who is holds one of your main women's titles. But that's not enough. She wants to go. It's like if you're in the NBA and you want to win like the G League title or something, or you want to go like the NCAA champs want to win the Final Four, but they're like, oh, we want to enter the NIT too. Like, just why would you want to win all these secondary titles? But the answer to that is she just wants to break a sort of superfluous but notable record of Ultimo Dragon. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it makes it seem to me, if I had I think the company, I'm backtracking to make a clear point here. I think championships don't get injured and they don't retire. And if you protect them and cherish them and treat them as important and scarce, and you don't give away title reigns like gold watches because somebody thinks they've had a good 10-year career, so now it's their turn, but you have it be this elite group, whoever holds a world title, and you really care for your secondary singles title if you have one, and that's it. It can draw. It can be that stabilizing force when you don't have great talent or you're injured, talent is injured or you're between big established stars. If that title belt means something, it can carry you for a while. But when you have your champion holding 9 other titles, it waters down the whole notion that you have won a title that matters enough that you won't be bothered with all these secondary titles. So it's not just about Mercedes is my point and what it does for her. To me, it waters down the concept of I've won one of the 2 major women's titles in this international AEW company. That says all I need to say. Why would I waste time and risk injury to win all these 2nd, 3rd, 4th tier titles? So there is the downside of that too. Anyway, Brian, over to
you. I've been mentioning this for a few weeks on the Collision Cafe, Wade. What's the end game here? Because I bring up table setting again. Myself and Amanda Jenny, we've asked for weeks now. Like, we want more depth to this. What is Mercedes Moné? She's one of the best women's wrestlers in the world. That's great, but I want to see more definition to her character. Plant some seeds because, as of Friday, she's going to beat Jade Cargill's record. That's great. If that was the ultimate objective, that's very cool. But plant seeds? Who's going to beat her for the TBS title? Are you going to just pick a hat one day and somebody's going to beat her on Dynamite? It would be all about the follow-up, but I just don't know if that necessarily... Are you planning on making a new star? Who's going to do it? Now, if we could skip ahead a little bit, Wade, if you don't mind. Yeah. I got the impression, based on the segment we got from Mercedes tonight, she's obviously wrestling on Friday. Now, I believe she's actually wrestling on Sunday, too, maybe? Her schedule is insane. Now, you have to give her credit because there was, I think the last show she wrestled, was it 3 or 4 times? There was a period where she wrestled like 3 or 4 times in like a week, and which most superstars of her caliber would never ever do. So I do give her credit for that. That's a nice, insane schedule. But we don't have a successor of who's going to beat her for the TBS title. Who's she going to make the next?
And she has all these titles that she eventually has to lose to a bunch of nobodies. Or is she going to retire all the belts and then these poor companies have to hold tournaments? Like, how are they going to unwind this without having to tell the story that she just lost to a bunch of like virtual nobodies, according to the AEW audience, 9 belts, and she's like, I just don't know. Have they thought this through? Do they have an end game? And would it be better to just focus on there's this really important title she won and who's her challenger and establish how it relates to the main women's title? All that would be nice. And this feels a bit of a distraction. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, no, ultimately on the pay-per-view, I got the impression that we're getting a celebration segment at WrestleDream, which, hey, if you want to add something additional, that's a promo, that's like a break in between all the matches, perfect. We better get a angle indicating whoever this person is, this better be the person that's going to dethrone Mercedes. Whether that's a debuting Dakota Kai, which a lot of people have been trying to predict, or I guess a lot of fans online really want Dakota Kai to be the person, which is fine. I thought there was an excellent opportunity with Alex Windsor. They haven't really followed up on that, unfortunately. Are they waiting to kind of like do this big fallout after Blood and Guts, where Mercedes should probably be on the heel side of Blood and Guts? There's a lot of different stuff, ways that you can do, Wrestle Dream after, I like you said, like give her a faction, give her some more background. Other than, like you said, she comes in and laughs and says, Renee, say hello to your CEO, which is like, she's more than that. She's so good. She can speak, she can wrestle. I just want to like know more about like this current arc. What's the end game? Just give me that.
Exactly. In the chat, somebody says she ain't, Ask Me Tunes says she ain't dropping those titles to anyone. GWF ESPN says she'll have to drop them over Zoom. That might be line of the night.
That's funny.
Sadler Version 3 says Dakota Kai is solid, but meh, the person beating Monet needs to be a bigger deal. So some comments there. Ducky D128 in the chat says, I hate how cynical people are about this Mercedes Monet run. I won't even know who half these women are without her lending her star power to the minor leagues. I think the company she works with disagree. I guess Mercedes walks in and beats the local champion and then takes it with her and maybe loses it back at some point in a storyline that then sort of undercuts her reputation in AEW, or doesn't, and then it leaves these so-called minor leagues, regional groups, international companies without a lineage. I don't know. It feels like a mess. To say it's cynical, I don't think it's cynical. I just think it's an opinion that it's a kind of a mess. I don't think it's a pure negative. I think some people think, there's no question, some people look at her and go, my God, she's traveling the world, winning everywhere she goes, and she has all these belts. It's cool. That's clearly who they hope most people feel that way. But if you think a little deeper, you're like, well, is she going to lose all these titles? And does having all these belts make it seem like, wait, doesn't being AEW champion mean something? No, you have to win all these other belts. Everyone should come to you. You shouldn't come to them if you're a champion of a top company in the United States. And so there are counter arguments to that, but right. Mark Pischetti says, I haven't seen evidence that Mercedes is as good as she was in WWE outside of WWE. JC Scooby says Monet is going to retire all the belts. And Mark Pischetti adds her character is cringe bad and brought 0 ratings. Yeah, something to, I don't think he's alone in thinking that, and some of the data points show that. Rude Dog, back to you.
Yeah, you kind of touched on a lot of the stuff that I wanted to bring up, but Mercedes does not like to lose. So she's going to lose all these belts. I don't even think she's going to lose the TBS belt. I think she's going to just keep collecting belts till she retires, and that's it.
Well,
we'll see. Stay tuned, right? That's the hook.
Well, it's not a very good hook,
but it's the hook, yeah.
Well, and if you go through her arc of opponents, the strongest opponent that they've built to potentially beat Mercedes is Harley Cameron. I'm dead serious. Who else have they built up to say, oh my God, Mercedes could actually lose?
Yeah.
I'm
with you.
Yeah.
I believe money is drawn when you have a strong championship and title reigns mean something. There are not a lot of titles because it waters it down. For every title you add, there's the same amount of prestige for your championships in the company. The question is, do you want 5 belts that matter, or 12 belts that matter less than half as much each? It's your choice, but they add up to the same. It's like when you're a little kid and they trick you and go, do you want 3 pieces of pizza or 4? And then, mom or dad cut the same part of the pizza into either 3 or 4 pieces, and they give it to you and go, here's 4 pieces. And then the sister complains, I only got 3, and it's actually the same amount of pizza. Basically, when you add titles, you're just diminishing the value of all of them, and it's sort of it's a kind of a childish way to approach. I think being a caretaker of championships. But that's where we are, and it's Tony Khan's philosophy. More belts, the better. It's a shortcut for bookers to try to add prestige to a match. But if you have a bunch of secondary titles that are giving more prestige to undercard matches, you now have a major title that is less of a draw. And I would focus on what you're saying, Brian. Have fewer titles, Don't introduce belts from elsewhere in the world. There's this whole thing people grow up thinking Vince McMahon is so mean because he won't acknowledge other companies. And it's like, I mean, yes, he went too far, but he wanted to portray himself as being at the helm of the number one company where everybody comes to them to win their championship. And so, in passing, and I think there's a happy medium now with Paul Levesque, he'll mention, they came from here, they came from there, but then you move on and you focus on yourself, the things you're in control of, and you want to seem like you're the big deal where everyone comes to you. AEW's marketing to a fan base that wants a We Are the World, sing along with all the companies in the world and acknowledge everybody. And there's merit to that with his audience, but there's diminishing returns for the value of your championships. And you can't defend all these titles on every pay-per-view. I'd rather have 4 title matches on a pay-per-view max and have fans know who the champions are, know what those belts mean. And when Okada walks out, I cover this industry for a living, and I have to go through my head, wait, which belt is that? Does he have a trios title? Does he have an ROH title I forgot about? There's so many belts people are carrying around. They are, as Todd Martin has said, trinkets. And I don't think the Mercedes Moné thing is doing anything but adding to the diminishing value of belts. And that's where the end game is important. But in the end, I agree with you, Brian. I would take advantage of her star power and her charisma and whatever made her so attractive to AEW to pay big money. And I would build up Alex Windsor, whoever, like do a full-fledged feud like we see with Darby and Mox for the women, and don't do this gimmicky stuff. But anyway, point made and elaborated on. Rude Dog, back to you.
Yeah. So just from listening you guys talk it out, I think there's no way Mercedes is going to lose 10 times all over the world in these dinky promotions or whatever. So I think whoever's going to beat her for the TBS title is going to win all the titles, and then they have to go do that, whoever that might be.
I mean, it's very interesting because if she's doing the Ultimo Dragon gimmick, I mean, maybe hypothetically, after she loses the TBS titles, she could say, "Hey, I'll put all the belts on the line," and maybe that's how you kind of tell her arc of losing all the belts. I mean, it's creative, and maybe that'll give an opportunity for somebody to kind of go on their excursion, more or less. Maybe to
if this was TNA, they'd have a 20-woman ladder match with 10 belts hanging separately. There'd be one over this turnbuckle, one over there, one out center ring. There'd be one on the stage. There'd be one hidden under the ring in some lockbox, and you have to do something convoluted to get the key to unlock it. And there'd be 20 women scrambling to win 10 titles. There'd be 10 losers, 10 winners, and they'd all go on their merry way. And 9 of the 10 people who would win those belts would be the original champions from these other companies who no one's ever heard of, and they'd just take the belts back with them, but Mercedes would never have to job to them.
And Jeff Jarrett will be the referee.
Totally. I said that in jest to be ridiculous. It would not shock me that wouldn't shock me if that is the end game, to do some sort of all the belts are on the line in a 20-woman battle royal, and first one to grab the belt gets it. It's like a scavenger hunt. It's like looking for an idol on Survivor.
Well, the end game has to be, this entire gimmick has to be, they want to do Dynamite with Ultimate Dragon at some point, right? That has to be an end game. Because I believe she wrestles, like I said, I think Sunday to get an 11th belt, I believe.
Yeah. Well, here's a comment. Once Moné, this is Ask Me Tunes. Once Moné wins the AEW Women's Championship, she will relinquish all the other titles. That's a way to make the AEW Women's title feel important, but
yes,
it's I don't know. I'm kind of warming up to this ridiculous, absurd notion of a battle royal for all the belts. Everyone
reverse. It has to be a reverse battle royal with ladders.
Oh, that'd be good. And there's 10. And in fact, maybe she's won 14 titles by then, and it's a 15-woman battle royal. There's one loser and 14 separate winners. 14 champions. All right.
We're having fun.
I will George Costanza the moment and walk away from this thought process while we're ahead. Go ahead, Rudog, if we're still ahead.
Yeah, thanks for putting that in the universe. Now it might happen.
All right.
All right, so I'll do another topic. So this might be the first time. I mean, this was, I guess, still Dynamite, even though it was Collision or whatever, but might be the first time I ever heard Megan Bayne do a live promo. And it was not good. I mean, I don't know what her character is supposed to be. It seems like some failed gimmick from the 90s. I mean, does she even have an upside? Because man, if you thought Charlotte Flair was a robot, Megan Bayne is like, hold my beer, Charlotte.
So people who didn't see this, I am talking at the pace of her promo right now. It felt like there was an imaginary what chant, Brian, going on that we didn't hear. And they were interrupting her every few words. It was weird. Or somebody was like, stretch. The last match went short. We need to fill an extra 8 minutes. You had a 4-minute promo, somehow turn it into 12 minutes. I know some people have a tendency to talk too fast on promos. And you're like, you're always going to be okay if you talk slower rather than speed talking. Who comes to mind who would? Ronda Rousey. She would always end her sentences like she was rolling down a hill and the words would go faster. Her talking would accelerate the more that she talked, and then it would be over.
Yeah.
Megan May is like the exact opposite here. It wasn't good. Brian.
Rude Dog, to answer your question, so this is I believe second or third time on TV that they've given her the opportunity to kind of speak. Since she's been with FTR, she's had a little bit more speaking parts, and it's backstage mostly. And I'm a big Megan Bayne believer. I think she has a lot of upside, and I think if they AEW challenge channels and challenges her properly, she could definitely be a top star in the company. Now, the promo was not great. However, sometimes you got to just go out there. Now, to Wade's point, maybe they said, "Hey, you got to stretch this out." But you know what? At least they're giving her the opportunity to do it because, Rude Dog, like you had mentioned, what is her character? She's the Megasis. What is it exactly? They don't really know yet, which it's completely fine. I still feel like Megan Bayne, I believe, since she's lost to Toni Storm, has been on and or featured on television every week since she's lost to Toni Storm. So that's a positive, first and foremost. Like, they still believe in her. That's great.
Well, by the way, didn't literally mean they told her go fill time. I was being facetious because they have, they have a tag match follow or whatever. They could have easily filled the extra 3 minutes that she needlessly took up with long pauses. So I was being facetious with that. That'd be cruel to say, go cut a terrible promo with no extra words or thoughts and just pause for 3 to 5 seconds in between every 2 sentences. One of the issues here is, what is Megan Bayne? What is Tekla? What is Chris Statlander? You could do a blind quiz. And on this episode, because like Tekla, she say that she described her character, and then you had Chris Statlander talking about her being a hybrid of different things, and then you have Megan Bayne using some phrase for herself. But like after Tekla's promo, the crowd was quiet because she just had like this clever wording in her promo, but she didn't actually say anything that would make you resent her. Oh, I'm toxic to the core. My name means chaos.
She's got to cut that out.
Yeah, my name means chaos and poison. I mean, like, that's like a video game. Like, if there was a video game character that had no trademark rights to any actual wrestlers, back like some knockoff generic wrestling video game, Tekla's promo would be on it, almost word for word. I am toxic to the core. My name means chaos and poison. But an audience sitting there doesn't hear that and think, boy, that got me, that sparked some emotions in me. Pro wrestling is about sparking emotions. It's not about being clever or funny or edgy. It's about saying something with the end goal being the audience is going to, as a result of this, want to root for me to succeed or root against me and wants me to fail. And if you don't do that, it's wasted words other than filling contractual TV time. And that's what Tekla did. We don't know her character. Statlander's just a poor actor, and her words look like she's reading off a teleprompter. And she was trying to say, well, I'm a blend of all the things that people said I was a jumbled mess. I've been a jumbled mess of one gimmick to the next, but now I'm a blend of all of them. And it's like, that's not selling me either. And then, Bayne calling herself the Baniac or whatever it was. What was it, Brian?
I mean, let's see
what you refer to herself as.
I mean, I just had the normal Megasis type of thing.
I think it was just probably Megasis. Yeah. So the issue with this is Tony Khan's got to go. who are you, and how do you want people emotionally to feel about your character? Is it supposed to be real or tongue-in-cheek? Is there going to be a backstory? Does it feel like you are this person outside of the ring, or you have sort of this alternate persona when you show up, you put on the superhero? Like, these discussions don't happen. They just think it's pro wrestling, and you use some clever catchphrases and, clever wording, and you have an outfit and a costume and a cool video behind you, and that's what it takes to be a wrestler. And what it takes to be a wrestler is to not leave a crowd going, I mean, I honestly thought that maybe it's true. Maybe that promo didn't air in the arena, because that's the silence that was met with Tekla when they were done playing her video. And that should be a wake-up call, not just to her, but everybody in the company going, that's right, this business is not about clever catchphrases and cool outfits. It's about having a specific goal in mind for the crowd to react to what I say in a way that sparks emotions, where they want to invest in you either winning or losing, and nothing about that did that. I mean, so anyway.
No, and if you think about it, if you park everything that you said, Wade, Tony Storm and just think about this. Tony Storm, like personified, she makes the most sense out of anybody that cuts a promo. And think about the ground that covers. Now she does. Nobody can do what she does, and the elements she's added to this character and cadence. Like, sometimes she can be silly, but she is still her. And that's why she's the most over woman in the division. That's why she, generally speaking, she'll get the second or third loudest reaction on the night. With Statlander, there's such a missed opportunity for her to kind of lean into, like, they had mentioned it, I think, on the video package they either did on Dynamite with Collision, with Renee kind of doing the voiceover. Statlander's been on the shelf for over 600 days of injury time. Like, lean into that. Like you said, Wade, for me specifically, like, I can enjoy a great match as the next person, but I want to lean into you. Like, I want to relate to you. Like, that's why I'm just a strong component in Hangman Page, because he'll let you kind of like in his thoughts and like, hey, I've been struggling. I'm a dad. Like, I'm tired because I had to wake up early. I had to change my kid's diaper. Like, lean into what your person is. Jamie Hayter, she's an ass kicker. She hits hard. Hayter hits hard. Simple, but everybody gets behind her. Everybody's sympathetic because she's been on a lot of injury time. Willow Nightingale, another example. It's funny because you go back and see these Collision highlights. Willow got one of the loudest reactions I think I've heard, that entire week at Daly's Place, where she had to fight off FTR. And that's another thing. Willow, she's kind of like the fun-loving, ass kicker at sometimes, because, you look at her and Statlander's Chicago
Miss Enthusiasm.
Yes!
Yep.
It just, and with her, you don't want to... I say this with all due respect. You don't want to conglomerate her, because everybody loves Willow. Everybody wants more Willow, because she is that fun-loving babyface that you can get behind. But like you said, Wade,
she's been better the last 2 weeks. But for weeks she was talking like a Little League coach who was scolding third graders for not playing defense well. I mean, there was a tone to her that got a little syrupy. And I think she dialed it back these last couple of weeks. And I hopefully it's not happenstance. Hopefully it's people going, wait a second, your tone and the way you're talking is actually kind of off-putting. And there's a innate likability to her that she was undoing with the tone of her promos for a month, give or take, there, where things kind of started going down, maybe more than a month, that started going downhill. Right, sorry. GWF ESPN says Tekla's promo is very 1990 American Gladiators. I wish I had said that, because it very much was.
Man, that's a good one. I like that.
Like Malibu telling you why my name is Malibu. So there's a good throwback. Now, defending this, Ducky D128 says Tekla said she traveled the world, gave relative specifics on those promos tonight. Even I didn't say it was useless. I said it didn't spark any emotions. It didn't spark any emotions. Are we supposed to dislike why she stood up to her boss, or she was defiant in the face of a reasonable boss when she beat him up? Europe didn't get me. That's a platitude. What does it even mean? You got to tell us. I don't. Were you wronged, or are you full of yourself? Everything she said was part of her story, but it was so vague you didn't know if she's speaking the truth or she's delusional. Is she egotistical or misunderstood? So she said these things, but again, it should go through the filter of how will somebody watching the show who isn't sold on you in any way yet Will they emotionally be invested in you winning or losing your next match because of what you said? Choosing for you to succeed or rooting for you to be humiliated. And that wasn't there. So it wasn't a useless promo. Well, I mean, in a way it was, if you say the ultimate goal is to get people to feel emotions. It wasn't useless in the sense she talked about her journey, but she did so in such an ambiguous, vague way. Nothing happened. Sadler version 3 says, Statlander's promo reminded me of when you would use the thesaurus to find a big word for your high school essay that you aren't sure made sense for the topic. For people who forgot or didn't see it, Statlander said she is the culmination of everything she was before. She said she is already different than the person she faced it all out, talking to Toni Storm. She said she is the champion of the world that they live in together. She said she is an extraordinary being who will outlive her doubters with her determination, her grit, and her ability, and she will give Storm, quote, the rest she so deeply deserves. In there is a good promo, but the delivery and the wordiness, it just got lost. And I don't know what Kris Statlander sounds like as a regular human being. I don't know if she's trying to sound like it there, but she seemed like somebody who was doing a dry run around a table of a read-through of a script that she got the night before, or a week earlier, and she's sitting down with her cast kind of halfway going through it. And also, it was a terribly scripted movie that shouldn't be produced, but that's what it sounded like. She was reading from a script that she wasn't fully familiar with yet. And it's just, I'm sorry, AEW has the budget. They should be hiring people to produce and work with people to get better than Kris Statlander showed herself to be tonight, both in terms of the words, whoever wrote it for her, she wrote it for herself, and also work with her on delivery. Who is she? And I want to hear her talk like a regular person. And if that regular person isn't charismatic enough to succeed, then give her a coherent character that she practices off camera for a while so it's more polished when it gets presented. But she's basically admitting, I'm the culmination of everything she was before. I mean, that's it, acknowledging you don't have an identity, and now you're just going, well, I'm going to be a bunch, people don't know who I am still. Well, I'm just a mix of everything. And, I know when you're 10, you want to squirt every fountain drink into your cup when you have access to it to create the mixed drink, but that doesn't make a wrestling character. That's what a 10-year-old does when they want to see what Mountain Dew, Dr. Pepper, Coke, Diet Coke, and Sprite taste like together. And that's not a coherent wrestling character that you can market.
Yeah, no, that's actually a excellent analogy, Wade. And it's unfortunate because I feel like we're in a time where like the women's division, as far as like wrestling, like like all of them are at a very quality level. But like you said, you can throw an Anna Jay and whoever else out there, the audience is going to be like, well, that was fine. But unless they're blown away by an 8 or 10 minute match, why should someone care about Anna Jay?
There's a lot of wrestlers in AEW, and more women than men, in the sense they haven't been given, and this is the fault of the industry, they haven't given as much mic time to practice their craft, and I don't think AEW is giving enough attention to them, and they're not getting mentored by enough people. So there's baggage here that leads to this. But I kind of want Lance Russell to show up and interview some of these women and help define their character. He was the interviewer in Memphis Wrestling, who was great pairing with Dave Brown calling Memphis Wrestling, and it was in the tape trading days of the early and mid 80s. Into the late 80s, but mostly mid 80s. It was the tape you wanted to get. It was that studio show, WMC Memphis, but it was a relatively small territory. They didn't pay well because Jerry Lawler didn't, and Jerry Jarrett didn't need to pay others because they had Jerry Lawler. And that was enough of a draw. And a lot of people went through that territory, but they went through it when they were green and they'd work for cheap. And Jerry Jarrett told me once, he defended it. He's like, Wade, we gave a big percentage of our budget to the talent. It just happened to be lopsided towards Jerry Lawler, so we could keep him here, so we didn't go elsewhere. But the idea was, we're giving you a chance to be on live television, getting reps, practicing your craft with a pro like Lance Russell, who was great at interviewing wrestlers who could not string sentences together. And he would ask the right question. He would, if you said something and you stumbled, he'd restate it and go, so what you're trying to say is this, but it was really like he was pulling them in the direction of what he knew a good promo was, and he would help them with it. AEW doesn't have that. Renee Paquette's trying to do comedy bits now. Oh, where's my jacket? And I mean, she wants to high five wrestlers. Like, she's lost the journalist trying to do good promos, and now she wants to be a character. And I'm against that. WWE does it too, where the interviewers are now cheerleaders for babyface. It's like, just be a professional interviewer, but also be good enough to make interviews better. Statlander could really use somebody who holds a microphone and walks her through it, and she can actually just answer questions with thoughts that are in her head because she knows what her character is. It'll sound natural. It'll be unscripted. And if she stumbles a bit, a good interviewer can restate things and steer in a better direction. that's a lost art where everything from the Monday Night War on, that hasn't been done enough. There's more of it for now than there had been in the 2000s. But the idea of a good interviewer who helps carry somebody who's green and doesn't know their character yet is a format that, if you have the right person to do it, can really help clean up some of the green promos here and help people refine their character kind of in real time, but much quicker, and end up in a better place than Statlander has after 5+ years.
Yeah, and then there's so many good, there's so many good people that the AEW can lean on. They've got Jake Roberts just right there. Dustin Rhodes, even though he's got no knees right now. Just, you've got so many ears that you could really lean into and listen to. And like you said, Wade, I think they're, like you said, first and foremost, it's an industry thing. I think that has to be pointed out first. Mm-hmm. I'd be curious, within the writer's room, obviously they've got the Jennifer Pepperman, very talented. Now, what's the problem? Is it more writing, or do we need additional voices? What's the problem?
There's value in having female voices behind the scenes in wrestling, but I would say there's value both in getting better promos out of men and women. I think having living a female experience is not, there's not one single uniform one, but you damn well better have a variety of women behind the scenes telling you, you know what, all you men who didn't think this was triggering, this was, and here's why, Right. But the idea that only a female producer can help Chris Statlander get better at promos, I don't buy. I think a good female producer can help men and women. I think a good male producer can help men and women. And I don't think Statlander's problem or Tekla's problem is a problem exclusive to the women in AEW. I think it's a problem that includes the lower card, mid card men also, who don't have a lot of reps on the microphone. This is not the women have a disadvantage in the sense that there just haven't been as many places to be a star on weekly TV getting reps, but it is not a exclusively female problem in AEW. And it's something by, now 6 years of Dynamite, I think Tony Khan should be a lot further along. But it's just Tony Khan has gaps in what his strengths are as a booker. And in 6 years, he hasn't filled them successfully enough to not end up with, still some things that are below where they should be. Ducky D128 says Statlander's evaluation is on point. Unfortunately, there's a lot to like about her, and I do, but I just don't think she has any acting chops, and I doubt she can be taught at this point. Stop having her act. Let's get a good interviewer who will just talk to her as a person. Who is she to her friends? Just have her be a normal. It's okay to be a normal person, not an alien, not a conglomeration and a blend of all these other things. Even if she's kind of boring on promos, as long as she's good in the ring and you tell a good story and people kind of like her, you can get further with that than whatever she's been trying to. I think there's room for improvement. I think in 6 weeks you could get her doing solid to good promos, but that is not a goal clearly or a capability behind the scenes in AEW right now. Statlander adds, I like Statlander as a serious heel, and I wanted to see more without Stokely because I can't take him seriously, but they turned her pretty quickly. That's the other thing. She could have been a heel with a spokesperson, and they abandoned that because their booking is undisciplined and scattershot and short attention span. And wrestlers are like, okay, we've been teaming for 3 weeks. Now let's do a breakup angle. No, team for 2.5 years, and then we'll talk about a breakup angle. Stop it, people. So
right.
Anyway.
Well, and they haven't really touched it. They didn't touch it this week, but could we still get a potentially Statlander joining the Death Riders? They didn't really tease it this week. There wasn't any interactions with Yuta, which I don't know if it's a good or bad thing, but there's that. And to me, that I'm almost more interested than maybe if she's around serious people, maybe her being around serious group will help give her more confidence. Because you look at somebody like what Moxley has done with Marina Shafir behind the scenes, she sounds night and day so much better on the microphone. If you hear her doing promos, these independent shows, Defy, when she's wrestling, I mean, maybe that's a pathway for her. Who knows?
Yeah. Blue Dirt 1 says, even in the interview with Renee, she was monotone and one note. I don't know. I'll tell you this. If Paul Heyman got to work with her for 2 months, she'd be given good promos. I mean, and he's not the only one, but it can be done. I mean, I don't think she's ever going to be a great promo, but you've got to watch what she does and go, here's your weakness. Here's what we work on. Steer away from this and steer into this. And that's what Heyman did in ECW with so many guys. I mean, Mikey Whipwreck turned into a draw. He's like, okay, I know what you're going to be, and you're not going to be anything else that has ever been in this industry. You're going to be Mikey Whipwreck, and here's what we're going to accentuate about you. And crowds are going to be going crazy for you. You got to figure out what that is and amplify it, and then edit a bunch of stuff out that is not serving her. All right, Rude Dog, back to you.
Yeah, I mean, after that collision, they didn't want to even mention. They had another thing on that was Countdown to Wrestle Dream.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a really big segment of Chris Statlander and her flipping off John Moxley and, like, you know, going against the Death Riders. So I don't know if that means she could join them or, like, that's off the table or whatever. But so it did get acknowledged, but just in the fourth hour that nobody watched. But,
yeah.
And then, well, speaking of other things outside of the program, I just happened to be listening to Sports Talk Radio this morning, and it's locally here in the New York, New Jersey area, but it's called the Maggie and Perloff Show. And for whatever reason, all of a sudden Darby Allin was on there, and they've never talked about AEW ever, so it was just completely random. But he came across really good and really sold the pay-per-view very well. And I was happy to see it. And, you know, he was talking about his, you know, climbing Mount Everest and whatnot. But I remember I remember him before he started with AEW, because I lived in the Pacific Northwest where he was an indie wrestler, but he couldn't talk at all. They would never put him on because this is a national radio.
Taz didn't talk, and now he's a color commentator. You know, I mean, like, there's guys who don't talk early, and then they turned out to be, like, actually good once they.
So you can work on it and, like, become something. Like, I mean, Tony Khan feels comfortable putting him out on a national, like, sports radio show. Mm-hmm. And he really pulled through, and, like, I was proud of him.
I would be sending Statlander on all these shows and have her just be herself, and then go, okay, let's amplify that on TV. Put her in a situation that's different, where the camera. I mean, when the camera's on, she's saying her lines, and then the life leaves her face while she thinks of her next line, like, and then she gets back into reciting a memorized line, and then the life leaves her face as she tries to remember the next thing she's supposed to say. And what she's saying isn't that good to begin with, but the confidence isn't there. Get her used to talking as herself in a relaxed situation, without a camera, without the pressure. You know, I don't know. Anyway.
No, Rude Dog, I'm glad you actually brought that up. So something I don't know if this is potentially contributed to, like, AEW having, like, these higher, you know, pretty steady pay-per-view numbers here the past few months. They have done a tremendous job, kind of like on the mainstream media circuit scene, because you see now AEW wrestlers going on Ariel Helwani. His interview with Darby this week was really, really good. I would honestly encourage people to go out of their way and watch that, because, like you said, Rude Dog, when you hear him, he did a great job. And, you know, everybody was kind of clipping the clip he had mentioned, because Ariel had asked him, like, the vibes are different. What's the biggest change? And Darby said straight up, the cancer's out. And he was just like, oh, are you talking? He said without saying, are you talking about CM Punk? He said, no. Like, the people that don't want to do the job. And he had flat out said, wrestling is fiction. Why do you should be okay with losing. This is a fictional thing. Yeah. So I actually love that. Like, you know, I'm sure, like, you know, people like Mark Hallis, they'd be like, oh, you know, why would you say that about the business? You, like, you know, you broke kayfabe. But, like, I honestly...
Not today's Mark Hallis. He's breaking kayfabe on his reality show every week, talking about how to throw a worked punch and I was selling.
But to your point, Wade, I honestly,
Mark Calloway for the uninitiated.
Calloway, I'm sorry. But I honestly love that, because I felt like that actually brought another side of Darby that, you know, everybody just thinks he's like a death-defying guy, but, like, hey, on a personal level, that was really cool to me.
Yeah. Sadler Version 3 says, I thought the Darby interview was going to be bad and shelled up, but it was actually really good. It made me like Darby more, as the Darby the human more. Cool. Rude Dog, anything else you want to add?
All right, just one last thing. I don't know if you caught it, but Brian Danielson near the beginning of the show had a Gordon Soley reference,
Yes.
which made me smile because he's one of my favorites.
Gordon Soley, Lance Russell, part of the same generation. Still, I always remember knocking on Gordon Soley's door at 10 a.m. at I think it was the Omni in Baltimore, the Omni Hotel, and he was in his boxer shorts and a t-shirt with a cigarette in one hand and a cocktail in the other, ready to do an interview with me when I was doing a special book interviewing wrestling announcers. He was a character.
Awesome. Yeah. I'd like to hear more about that. But,
I should reissue the books, honestly. It's just I wasn't so busy. We've got a whole summer annual. I did summer annuals in the early years of doing the newsletter, and we had a theme, and one of the themes was wrestling announcers, and interviewed Jim Ross and Lance Russell and Mick Karsh and Ken Resnick and Gordon Soley, and I'm trying to remember others too. Just interviewed as many as I could. Gordon, it wasn't a good interview, but I mean, it was an era where nobody was doing insider real journalism interviews than me. I mean, I was a pioneer of that before podcasts, before shoot tapes. Torch Talks were the starting point for anyone going on record talking out of character about wrestling or talking about behind the scenes stuff. But there was some resistance early on, and some announcers are like, "Why are you asking me that question? I've never been asked that question before by Bill Apter." So anyway, it'd be fun to reissue those. Yeah. Cool. Thanks, Doug. Always good talking with you.
That's all. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Yeah, you too. All right, let's go to JB's email. He's going to cover some topics that we have not gotten to yet. First, he goes, what was going on with the opening rundown? It seems like Excalibur and Shivani were stumbling over multiple matches. Definitely. I noted that in my report at PWTorch.com. I hope everybody takes a break from social media to see what I'm saying about TV shows on PWTorch when I'm covering these shows, because I had not only details in case you're not watching the show or you're not paying attention or don't see the whole thing. I'll catch you up on the details, hopefully in a well-written way, but also add my analysis and quips. And one of them was, I thought that they were getting confused and tripped up on, because they're trying to promote what's coming up on Dynamite, and then some of the Dynamite segments were promoting a pay-per-view, and they didn't know what the pay-per-view match was versus the matches on Dynamite. And then you had somewhere on the pre-show, and they have stumbled over what that's called because it's a tailgate party or whatever. So it wasn't smooth, and it was too much information. I guarantee you in WWE there are people there who would be laughing, and always have. I actually know. I mean, I say this like hypothetical. I know it's true. There's people in WWE who watch AEW from time to time, and they're just laughing at it being amateur hour, because it's like, you don't say that many things without graphics, without slowing down, and without curating it to the most important stuff. They threw way too much stuff out there in that opening segment. But by the end, you didn't know anything. I mean, they told you 10 matches, 5 on Dynamite, 5 on the pay-per-view, and you might remember 1 or 2. And then they didn't talk about the main event practically for another 2 hours and 40 minutes. So yeah, it was as JB points, they were stumbling over stuff, but part of it is they were tripping over each other, and there was too much that they were talking about. There's so many better ways to warm people up for a TV show than what AEW does. And it's frustrating after 6 years, because it seems so obvious to me. Like, there's better ways to warm your audience up for your show and really drive home points. And I mean, it's subjective, but I strongly feel they do an absolutely horrible, terrible job. And I can't believe after all these years, they're still doing such a terrible, horrible job for the people who are once a week viewers. They have busy lives. They tune in and they want to know what to look forward to and what's happening. And they have just a terrible way of going about getting people excited for and warmed up for the show.
Yeah, I mean, 6 years in, 2-man booth, for the love of God, just 2. Danielson and Excalibur, that's all I need right now. And I was actually actively annoyed the last couple weeks. Danielson's been really quiet on commentary, and that's bothered me. And you got to hear him again, and that was like one of my favorite things of the show, because he brought life into that that pay-per-view last month. He was the star of the show, and now a lot of people said, well, he's a little bit too honest, but good.
Yep.
Like, he cares. He loves doing this. He can get jazzed about things. I feel like him and Taz will have good commentary at times, but then I feel like Excalibur and they'll just overtalk him, and maybe Danielson's just being, maybe a little bit too polite, like he is as a wrestler. He just wants to do business.
he's new in that role and he's being deferential, but also, as I talked about last week, and I was highly critical of Danielson because I didn't feel he was bringing anything to say to the shows. I think he's being deferential, but I also don't think he took this new job seriously. He seemed like a guy who showed up at your house and sat on the couch with some pizza and a drink and says, let's watch wrestling and I'll comment when something comes to mind, instead of, and I'm talking about the end product, not his actual dedication. I'm saying the end product of Danielson, whatever amount of work he put in, I don't know. But it doesn't come across to me like he showed up 4 hours early and sat down with the wrestlers and the producers and Tony Khan and said, what are the segments? What key points are we talking about? And how can I contribute to that? And it takes work to be a color commentator in the modern wrestling era. It didn't back in the day, but it does now. Every segment and every match, he should have spent 20 minutes talking to people about every single segment, every match individually, like collectively hours preparing to give his best for that 2 hours. Now, in his defense, he's new. He was being deferential because Brian's a nice guy. And he and Taz had duplicate roles, veteran announcers analyzing wrestling moves. I don't know if there was tension with him and Taz. I have no idea, but it came across like Danielson didn't want to step on toes. But I also don't think when Danielson had a chance, last week I kind of mocked some of the phrases. I quoted some of the things he said, and they were just trite and saying obvious things. Like,
I forgot he was there half of the time.
Yeah, and then when he did talk, he'd say like, Samoa Joe is tough. That arm bar will make your arm hurt. Like, he was just saying things that didn't provide any insight. There was no personality, and he talked like he was talking to a girl who knocked on his door for trick or treat. Like, his tone doesn't carry authority. It doesn't make things feel important. And so people want to say he's good when he's not because he's a great wrestler and he's a nice guy, but he wasn't good. But I think it was a combination of factors. He didn't put in the prep, or it's not his thing, but also he's being deferential and understanding it's not his. So again, it comes down to so many things with AEW. They don't have professionals staffed and directing things to go from kind of phoned in and casual and we'll just wing it to the next level. And you listen to Wade Barrett, that's next level. There's a reason he just leapfrogged Corey Graves and is their color commentator. Wade Barrett brings something to every match and every segment. And Corey Graves does too, by the way. It's just Barrett's, fresher voice and whatever. But if you watch WWE, and you don't have to like WWE better than AEW as a wrestling fan, but if you watch, you can see the level of prep and seriousness and investment that they take in every position on that show. And Tony Khan does not get that out of the people he pays. And he hasn't hired a staff that does it on their own. Not in every category, but in a lot of categories that shows up on TV.
Yeah, to comment. Because on Collision, when it's just Tony and Nigel, I feel like that's fine. Like, I feel like Shivani is more comfortable. Now, some people have said, hey, let's put Kabani on there, which I'm kind of in favor for because I've been kind of asking and wondering. Kabani? Yeah. With I think he's only. I don't. I'm not to step on you. I think Excalibur, Shivani, and Ian all have weaknesses, and they're all fixable with leadership and production, but none of them on their own are good. Excalibur still doesn't exhibit human inflection. He says everything like he's a ring announcer instead of a and then Tony goes the opposite direction. He's Mr. Casual, hang out with him. These guys in the ring, I remember decades ago somebody telling me how mad they were. Tony referred to wrestlers as guys. They're not guys. Like, they're athletes. You don't have to say superstars all the time, but like there's a casualness to them, and it's attractive to people, but it's something that it's something where you could tweak it a bit to add a little more gravity to things. Somebody said who was it? JC Scooby said they should have fired Excalibur instead of Kevin Kelly. Kevin Kelly was horrible. Absolutely. Yeah, he wasn't great.
Horrible. He was
great.
Talk about arrogant. He showed up and the end product looked like arrogance. I am New Japan royalty, announcer of the year. And he had this song, voice, and delivery that was hideous, and nobody said anything to him. And he lived up to his reputation for people who weren't just, fans of his the gift he had to call some of the greatest matches in history. And with people feeding him a lot of information and helping him out. But no, Excalibur's better than Kevin Kelly, I would say, by a good distance. But there's weaknesses everywhere, and I think it does hurt the AEW product. There's times when Excalibur comes back from a segment, and there's like he says what needs to be said, but he says it like he didn't see the segment, but he was told what to say. Like there's and he like laughs at violent move. Ho, 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 did you see that? It's like that's not you're not Santa Claus ho ho hoing a big spot. React like somebody got hurt, not like it's an exciting move that people are going to chant this is awesome for. But it comes from that indie show high spot mentality instead of I need to get characters over and sell the emotions of the show. And it's been a perpetual problem for 6+ years with him, and I don't think he's going to get better. It's who he is. And Rick Abani is fine. Maybe if he had the lead role and wasn't sort of having to be deferential too in the AEW atmosphere, he'd be better. But I don't think he's turnkey great either. Anyway, Brian, like 3 minutes ago,
I mean, no, it's an interesting conversation because I really think Danielson brings energy, and I feel like that's
tonight he was better.
No, he was, and I say this as someone who has lately been burnt out on wrestling. I almost wonder if Excalibur's a little burnt out. He just doesn't. I don't know. He just kind of, like you said, Wade. He's saying the lines. He kind of just sounds like he's going through the motions. I don't know. Like he just he doesn't give me that same energy that he had. Well, he's been doing it for 6 years now. Of course, he's not going to sound like year 1, year 6. But like you said, you don't have to be Danielson like where you're cheering off your desk. That's completely fine. But like reel it in. You should be kind of like a pro's pro at this point, since you've been doing this for about 6 years. And I don't know if there's I still like Nigel McGuinness a lot. I think Nigel actually he might be their Wade Barrett on commentary. For me personally, I just feel like Nigel does a really good job of explaining like the fundamentals of a move where he'll pop in some silly moments, but I think he's a little bit more disciplined, supposed to Excalibur and Taz.
I don't want to be dismissive of explaining the technical aspects of a move, but wrestling is about telling stories and getting fans to react emotionally towards wanting to see someone win or see someone lose, or feeling that there's there's gravity to what's happening, that there's high stakes, it's historically significant and important. And so, yes, it's good that you can say, oh, that technique, or, like Michael Hayes would always say as color commentator on UWF Mid-South, he should have hooked the leg. That was like the thing he always said on color commentary. Jim Ross kind of picked up on that and has used that for years. You can critique matches, you can add to the technicality moves, but everybody watching, what they want to be wrapped up in the emotion of I need Sami Zayn to win this title. I want Cody Rhodes to finish the story. It's about going on journeys with wrestlers, and color commentator's job is not to bring technical expertise to moves only. That is an asset, but it is secondary to knowing what the story is and knowing how to tell that story in a way that gets viewers feeling like I need to see what happens next and I care what happens next. And there's very few people doing a good job with that. They do the whole segment with Darby and Moxley that we talked about at the top of the show. And Darby's face is his bloody head is pushed against the glass by Pac. And we come back and Excalibur says the Death Riders were one step ahead of Darby. I'm not even doing my inflection isn't on right now, but it felt like a planned line. It didn't feel like he watched something and had a human oh my God. Like, and I don't want him to like oversell in a phony way, but like, it just was so like, just matter of fact with the announcer voice. The Death Riders were one step ahead of Darby. Well, yes, that's a fact, but is there a human being behind those words who just saw what happened? And it's like he comes up short every single time in terms of that emotional human reaction. He just, like the way he introduces the show, it's just like, it's Wednesday. It's like, just talk to me like a person with an announcer voice instead of an announcer doing an announcer gimmick. And I just think I don't say it kills the product. AEW is a successful company, and Excalibur, there's been worse for sure. Like, I think he serves a slice of the audience that's still around, but I don't think he helps in a lot of ways that a top shelf announcer should. I don't know if he has it in him. I mean, I'm more negative on him being able to improve than say Chris Statlander, because he's just been doing it so long. But the way he vocalizes, just it's more ring announcer than it is, a guy you want to spend 2 hours with who's kind of reacting emotionally to things. They're just not that human. His voice doesn't have a human range, and he says things like it's a line he's reading off a page with announcer voice, and it's frustrating. The wrestlers deserve better.
You're absolutely right. And luckily, in his very, his pay-per-view appearances, even though he'll do a couple matches, I still get a lot of energy from Jim Ross, even at this stage of his life. They put him in for the big time matches, or him still finding energy to commentate on Okada. I'm just like, you guys, like, if Jim Ross can do this for an Okada match, like, why is this so hard for you guys?
Yeah. After the Samoa Joe Hangman, handing the belt back to Hangman, a little shove in the chest, a little, full circle to what triggered Joe in the first place. Excalibur said tensions were rising between champion and challenger. What? Like, that's how you respond to that?
Michael Coleism. That gives me the ick, Wade. Don't like it.
Tensions were rising between champion and challenger. No, just say Samoa Joe just shoved the title back to Hangman Page, a callback to what triggered this feud happening in the first place. Joe's got his game face on. He looks like he's ready to win the world title and regain it from Hangman. Hangman is trying to put on a brave face, but you can see he sees something in Joe that he hasn't seen. Like, I'm not saying that has to be exactly what the interpretation of that segment was, but that's what I want to hear from my announcer. I want to feel like he experienced it for the first time, and he doesn't have just platitudes and cliche words. I want to feel like the words coming out of his mouth are an emotional reaction to watching something, instead of him saying what he thinks a generic wrestling announcer is supposed to say with the deep voice. I think he thinks he's being a wrestling announcer, but he's not being a human being invested in what's happening. And then during matches, he's a guy popping for high spots and laughing at violence because, like, he's sitting around with his buddies watching a high spot indie show. I know I'm hammering the point hard, but I was like looking up these examples because it was irritating me. It's like tensions rising between champion and challenger. That's not how human beings talk. Nobody watching a football game says to their friend, "Wow, tensions were rising between that running back or the safety and the wide receiver." Like, nobody talks like that. It's bad. Yeah. All right. Ducky D128 says, I can barely imagine AEW without Excalibur, but I agree there are so many classic AEW moments that were in 9 or 10 out of 10 that came off as 7 out of 10 because of his soulless delivery. I wouldn't go that far. Soulless? That's Ramen Noodle, by the way. All of a sudden everybody's nicknames are gone and their handles are showing up, so I'm using those. But yeah, I mean, soulless is a word for it, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, the times, everything that you laid out, it actively bothers me. And now I'm just like, oh, he did say that, and why did he say that? And the times I'm mainly annoyed is just when they're just, I like how they like being around each other, but there's those moments in times where, Excalibur, Shivani, and Taz, they're just really more concerned about trying to pop each other than laying out. And sometimes can be funny if it's not all the time, but if that continues to be them just having a good time and we can't really commentate on this really good match, it kind of just, tears it up.
Yeah. All right. Question number 2 out of 14 from JB in his email.
Wow.
So
okay.
We'll go rapid fire through these. I sort of like the storytelling being told that a broken Tony Storm isn't willing to take the big shot on Statlander to get the job done. The new aggressive Statlander is interesting as well. I still wonder if it is portending joining the Death Riders at some point, and if that will come into play at Wrestle Dream. So talked about that segment already a lot, but the idea that these are two people who respect each other, and Tony clearly needs that title back to feel complete, and Statlander's still trying to prove herself is I think they could have done a better job explaining that even within the confines of Tony Storm's character than they did. But I think there's a story there to be told, and it was partially told. It just was terribly acted with wordiness. Yes. Number 3, where is this Hurt Syndicate GOA feud going? They seem to keep trading wins and losses, but what's the ultimate booking profession that TK has in mind? Well, Hurt Syndicate finally lose by pinfall in a match. Shelton got pinned.
Very good match, I thought, actually, too.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I don't know where it's going. I mean, I another dig at Excalibur, since that's what we're doing. Excalibur tried to make it seem like MVP being in the match was like this asset. Oh, with his experience and his martial arts background or his combat arts background. It's like, didn't MVP just like 2 weeks ago say, I'm over the hill and I learned it and I'm not good anymore and I need to be on the sidelines, and suddenly they turned it into a 6-man tornado tag match, and Excalibur's, I mean, he could have been produced to do this or told to do it, but now he's trying to sell us on MVP being this special secret weapon when he was just resigning himself, or admitting he didn't have it anymore, and it's time to let Bobby and Shelton do the fighting. So
yeah, very strange booking. I was thinking, okay, is MVP going to get taken out? Because they teased a few weeks ago, if I don't know if you remember, Wade, that maybe they were looking to add a new member. So I just assumed, okay,
yeah.
Is MVP going to get taken out? There was reports that apparently Cedric Alexander's contract is due. Like, would they just bring him up for nostalgia? And it'd be a very nice thing to have all of them together. I think that'd be actually really nice, considering what they did in the pandemic. That's cool. But to me, if you're asking for a new member, like, I'd rather see someone like Kevin Knight in that position, or God, please, and end this Acclaim thing and add one of them in there, please.
That was weird. Yeah, that whole thing is weird. I do think Anthony Bones thinks that his media work is, what he gets paid for. Being and he's good, and it's nice to have a out front LGBTQ male gay athlete who's talking the talk and doing the media tours, and he's super professional and he's good for the brand in that way. But I mean, I still think he's terribly underachieved for where I thought he'd be by now, based on the skill set that he brought to the table. And the Max Caster, I mean, it's Max Caster. I was very down on that angle before because I thought he had a chance to be higher on the card, and then he was so entertaining in whatever he did, but then it just didn't have the payoff, and now they're together again, but they don't want to be called the Acclaimed, and it just, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm ready for
it. Stinks.
Yeah. I was going to say about... like for Excalibur with MVP, I just wish he would have said what everybody's thinking, which is, this is a tornado tag match. MVP just said he's kind of the weak link in this team. Is it valuable for the demand that MVP is in the match? Who is MVP? Who can he stand up against? He is like, own the reality and give some people hope. But then once you gain credibility by doing that, but in a tornado rules tag match, they could have announced it sooner. It's so chaotic. What will MVP have up his sleeve? In a straight-up match, there's more limitations. But in this situation, with everybody fighting everybody, no tags, that actually plays into MVP's into MVP's strengths at this stage of his career. I mean, there's a way to not just gaslight us with the notion that MVP's experience and combat arts is going to serve him well against athletes in their prime like Ricochet and GOA. So.
Yeah, the booking strategy is really weird. You just had the street fight, and now you're having the Tornadoes tag, which is essentially going to be a weapons match kind of.
It's hard to spin. It's hard to spin this as, oh yeah, yippee, we finally get to see these two settle it, when they had their street fight already. So it's the booking's weird, as you said, Brian.
Yes.
I really like the background of the Mox Darby face-to-face, and this is one of the examples of where a pre-tape segment works a lot better than anything that could have been done live. I also liked how Darby referenced what the Death Riders did to Danielson as a reason that he could never go to war with Mox as a brother. Own your past, and if it's painful and awkward, then change your future and don't do the things you did in the past anymore. Like, if you go, we can't own our past because that's too stupid. We can't talk about someone trying to suffocate somebody. Well, you did it. You should own it, but don't do crap like that in the future.
Yes.
Number 5, I like that Claudio got a win for the Death Riders tonight without any interference. That needs to happen from time to time, even for a heel faction. The announcers laid that on thick too. Like, oh my God, it's notable. There were no Death Riders at ringside. So I don't know if that's planting seeds for Claudio to go babyface.
Or very good work. But I'll never remember the match. It just, I like both guys. I think this was, I guess, a really strong work rate match for those who are into that. But to me, both, at least with Claudio, like you said, there's the seeds, but Roderick Strong's been so weird and goofy. He's been conglomerated. I just don't care about him right now.
12 minutes of a match where you know Claudio's going to win with or without interference. Yeah, against Roderick Strong, who, did some comedy stuff, but But there's no there's not a strong enough backstory to hold people's attention with a match like this. And this is where Danielson can go, but these are former ROH champions and former tag champions. It's like, you know what? You got that audience. The audience that cares about that, and all they need is 2 former ROH champions, even someone as bland as Roderick Strong was and has been so much of his career, just kind of generic wrestler 101. That's factually true, but you're not bringing in new viewers. You're losing viewers by the week right now. And at some point, you got to realize you got to stop super serving the people who are going to mark out for 2 former ROH champs from decades ago facing off each other and put in the work to tell the storyline so people actually care about a match. I love the Don Callis family birthday dinner celebration. The way that Okada quickly hit the wrong button, oops, on the Takeshita thank you video was continually laying the groundwork for their impending feud. It's great storytelling. So I get a kick out of it. Now the question, we can step back and go, should Okada be a comedy figure doing comedy when you have Kyle O'Reilly making funny faces and you have Harley Cameron doing her thing? And I mean, it's like who gets to make people laugh this week on AEW? There's too much of that, and I think there should be. It just doesn't draw money in the quantity that they're doing it. And MJF has never recovered from trying to do haha silly stuff. So so that aside, and that's a lot to set aside because Okada should have some gravitas, but that he is good in this role. I mean, he is having fun and interrupting hit the wrong button. I mean, it was perfect.
I feel like he's definitely toned down he's a dry. I can really get into that. He's not trying to actively say, the hardcore elite humor that's not really funny sometimes. And I don't think we've mentioned it yet. The complete highlight package of Takeshita winning the IWGP World Title. Great. Video package. And in AEW in this economy, like that, keep doing that.
I mean, that,
yeah, because they've at least made an effort. It's very scattered. I wish they were a little bit more consistent on that. Because I feel like this is the first time they actually showed a complete title change like that. And I wish they would have said, hey, well, I mean, obviously they're not going to say if you want to watch this match, go watch this company. But for anybody who didn't watch Takeshita win the title this weekend, I don't know.
It's not AEW's job to send people to spend money.
No. It's not. But I was encouraged. At least they showed it in full. That's cool.
Well, yeah. What I was going to say is if they had to plug them in exchange for getting rights to footage, I think it would be worth the trade off to give. A little plug. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Because they've never done that before. Because I wonder if they just have to pay it, or because New Japan's very stingy on that, especially on YouTube and things like that. So.
And then Excalibur said the IWGP title, the top title in New Japan. He held your hand. He assumed no knowledge. That did not insult people who can name their top 10 IWGP tournament matches of the past 20 years. You didn't insult their intelligence by doing that. That's all we want is just. Don't make people who don't know feel like they're not welcome here, or they have to do their own research and little things like that. I mean, it's not a big deal, but it's been so absent from AEW from the week one. I mean, with Dynamite. I mean, it's been something we've been harping on for 6+ years. They just are not good at acting excited to bring new people into the fold. They're good at talking to the people who have been in the clubhouse for a decade. So it gave them a chance to do that a little bit in a good way here.
Would you have them win the titles on Saturday, Takeshita and Okada?
Honestly, I don't feel strongly. I think they can have a breakdown in chemistry and lose, or they can win and have an awkward title reign, but tell a story arc where. I mean. When you put those two together, they should win. I mean, I struggle to say anything, but they should win. But it's sort of but if Okada just isn't on board with this because he's jealous of Takeshita or resentful, then, I mean, you can tell that story in the match, and that's why they lose. I mean, so I don't know. I think you can tell the story either way, honestly. What do you think?
Based on the Collision part of the show where FTR said, after they beat, Jet Speed, they're onwards and upwards to the tag team title, which completely makes sense. And you already saw like an iteration of Brodito and FTR prior. So could you run that back? Sure. And, as FTR still have Cope and Cage business to handle at some point, which is a possibility as well. But I also appreciate them, still giving just Brodito, AEW very seldom goes with something that's hot, and they went with this, and they
really sort of went with it, but we still don't have segments with Brody King and Bandito often enough.
Yeah, because that Dynamite segment last week,
yep,
very very good. That Bandito's little talking segment backstage that completely sold me on the match.
And what you want is, you don't want it when you see it. You go, why have they not been doing more of that? And then see them not follow up on it. You got to choose who you're pushing, and put the work in to find interesting ways to present them every week in an ongoing storyline. And they're doing that with Takeshi and Okada, by the way.
Yes.
But you want to do that with Brody King and Bandito. They shouldn't be spinning their wheels in the exact same place. There's no story. What's the story with them? They won the tag titles. They're an odd couple tag team. What have we learned about them in the last 2 months?
On television, nothing. We've learned more on the AEW press scrums that they've got a decade relationship, like you said, but they do not emphasize that on television at all. Tell us that. Tell us that. Like, show us a video. Like, show us a video.
Get in the Brodito business.
Yes, please.
In the business of every week bring something new to this act, which got over organically. And you say they stuck with it, but they're just coasting on it. They're just coasting week by. They'll go in. Brody will hit power moves. Bandito will do high spots. The crowd will cheer them. That's presenting matches. That's not booking.
Right.
That's not enhancing things. All right. All right. We're running short on time. We'll rapid fire more things here. I like Jack. This is still JB's email. I like Jack Perry keeping the edge from his previous heel run while also adding the boyish charm that got him over in his original run with Luchasaurus and Jurassic Express. He's acknowledging his previous relationship with the Bucks in an introspective way. I like how Jack and Kenny also haven't forgotten about their past, despite both being current faces. I thought those, it's awkward to have someone who sends you, to an ambulance, as the announcer talked about, and you missed 6 months, to go, well, I forgive him because he took a clothesline for me. I mean, I'd ask a little more of that, but it's pro wrestling, and I think you have to figure out how to tell a story where you're acknowledging the history, and something happens where you can understand Kenny going, all right, this guy's winning me over. And I thought they told it suitably well. I say they told it really well, but it's just tough because of how heavy the angle was to begin with.
Yeah, that was I think one of my favorite talking segments with Omega this past Saturday in ages. Yeah. Because like you said, sensibilities, Wade. Like because Omega, yes, yeah, because he felt pissed off because he said, "Screw you and your dinosaur! Like you left me for dead." Yep. And I'm just, where has this Omega been? Like, it just, I'd like more of that, please.
Totally agree. Tekla's promo didn't do a lot for me. She attacked Hater because she was there. Oh, yeah. That's a good way to build up a feud. I have nothing against you. You just happen to be the person who was there. I rolled my eyes at that. Now it's being done in such a minor way that it's happening in ROH and I just conflated two questions. Sorry. She attacked Hater because she was there. Weren't there probably several women wrestlers readily available to be attacked for Tekla's debut? I wish there's a little more meat to this rivalry outside of the original random first attack in May. Yes, and then don't say it was random if you want people. I mean, it should be personal, not random. So yeah, a lot of things I wasn't impressed by with that promo. How many times has Sammy Guevara been turned at this point in AEW history? Now it's being done in such a minor way that it's happening in ROH and being mentioned in passing on Dynamite proper. At least it was mentioned in passing, Brian.
Yes. Oh God. We have to be anywhere from 5 to 6, maybe.
No.
I'm not sure.
Sammy Guevara is a bland babyface and a really interesting heel with a face that you want to see punched. And I just think they should have kept him heel, and he should have stayed heel. And at the 8-year mark, maybe have a discussion about turning him heel. But that's not the way AEW books. They get bored and undisciplined and think, let's turn somebody, let's break somebody up, and then you end up just thinking they don't have any constitution, and you don't feel strongly about them in any way because 2 months from now you think they'll be playing a different fake role.
I will say his shirt situation was ridiculous. A very good heel work where he had his shirt all the way buttoned all the way down to the last button, but then had his shirt tucked in. Very funny. Good stuff. Like that.
So, Sammy as a heel, I still think has a chance to be something, but keep him heel. If you're in the Sammy Guevara business, then be in the business, and let's consistently tell the story. I know there's only so much TV time but you got to pick, and I think Sammy, there's enough there that I would say if you're gonna, kind of like with Jack Perry, we needed tonight's promo. If they didn't have a Jack Perry promo, I was gonna be upset after what we saw Saturday on Collision, and they did, and that's good. But I don't know.
Sex Gods was a underrated act that AEW did not go full throttle with, and I wish they would have, because the Sex Gods as a heel group, that was good.
And I still think Sammy has, like secondary champion heel that you pay to see get beat up potential still, even after all these years.
Yes.
I feel as though they should have flip-flopped the Hangman Joe face-to-face in the trios match Hangman commentary from this week. The face-to-face did a lot more to sell the match, which is better for the go-home show. Yeah, I get that. But, it came very late in the show. Fewer people were watching.
Hangman did have a funny line. I think he compared, oh God, what did he say? Something about a Christmas ham. When talking about Samoa Joe.
Yep. I would have been fine with Hangman not being on color and not. I mean, they wanted to remind people at the end. This is
although at least maybe they planted a seed, which eventually maybe we're gonna get a Roosh Hangman match, because Roosh did spit on Hangman. So maybe that'll be a TV match here in the next week or so.
Yeah. You spit on. I didn't think it was a good look for Hangman to go, "Oh, you spit on me," and then just sit there for a little while longer. Like if someone spits on you, you should pop out of your chair and tackle them. So I don't know. I mean, it was at least part of Dynamite. It wasn't so deep in a Collision, and they do a lot. But I guess some of it lost its punch because it's just like, stay tuned, everybody. We have another hour to go. So it didn't really feel like a needed.
Are you looking forward to this this video that's AEW's dropping about Hangman on Friday? What is this supposed to be?
I don't know, but we're almost out of time, so don't throw that.
Okay,
at me
sorry.
This late. Well, what do you think? What do you think?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. They teased a 2-minute clip of it last week.
He's joining Ice.
No, I don't think he's joining Ice. he's been complaining about that quite a bit.
Yes. Quite the turn.
I don't know. It was just very the things that I've brought to you for years now, where I've felt so strongly about Hangman. They kind of showed it in this little 2-minute clip, and I said, well, what is this? Why is this not on Dynamite? That's why. If it's something really good, then it's like, why would you put it on socials and not Dynamite?
Because Tony Khan looks at the minute by minutes and thinks, if I'm going to lose 14% of my audience, I don't want to sell pay-per-views. I just need to make sure nobody leaves this show at any time, and they stay tuned when there's a match in progress, and we have a bunch of interference, and we have a finish. That's where the peak numbers are, and he pays too much attention to little stuff and sacrifices big things like really compelling character segments that I don't know. I'm connecting dots, and he may push back on that characterization, but I do think there's a history and support for the argument that he pays attention to small things that don't matter as much on social media and minute by minute numbers, when I think stepping back and having a more cohesive, compelling overall product where you don't take really good segments that you're worried won't hold the audience, but you put them out there anyway because most people are going to see it and it'll pay dividends down the line. He doesn't do that enough. And that the Countdown shows have had some of the best promo work in AEW's history that very few people saw. Some of the best stuff that wrestlers do is on social media, and they don't bring it to TV. I'm not going to be able to get to everything here. It's funny that the tamest of Darby's weapon so far was saved for the go-home show. I do like tying Darby in climbing Mount Everest as evidence why he'll never quit. And I like the announcers highlighting these are two of the strongest willed wrestlers in the sport. I think I like the idea of Megan Bain, FTR, Stokely as a stable. Holly Cameron is perfect as a scrappy, lovable underdog. In my opinion, she's a better version of WWE's Maxine Dupree in that role. And while I think it would have given Bones and Caster true singles runs, I'm actually glad they're doing a slow burn to the Acclaimed reunion rather than just immediately reuniting with no catalyst. As always, love the show and go VIP. Speaking of which, I'll put the VIP graphic up for YouTube viewers and let the audience know. We'd love to have you as a VIP member, PWTorch.com/GoVIP. That'll include our post-Wrestle Dream pay-per-view roundtable just for VIP members. We've been doing them for over 2 decades after pay-per-views, and you can listen to them on demand if you go VIP. PWTorch.com/GoVIP gives you full details on how to sign up. Brian, any 20-second closing mini editorial comment from you on the show that we might not have covered?
No, I will say the show did a good job to pique my interest for Wrestle Dream.
Yep. Very good. All right. We'll sign off there. Thank you, everybody, for your continued support. And like this show, comment below, subscribe, set that alarm, and we will talk to you all Friday night after SmackDown, and then also on the VIP side of things, I'll be hosting, and on the and we'll also have Brandon Leclerc doing the post show Saturday after Wrestle Dream here on the PWTorch YouTube channel live.